let's talk about a battle that really, on paper, should never have been won. It's one of those moments in history where a tiny, completely outnumbered army stands up to a juggernaut, with the fate of their entire country just hanging by a thread. This is the story of the Battle of Bannockburn, a fight that was about so much more than just a castle.
So just look at this mismatch. On the eve of battle, back in June of 1314, the odds were, well, they were just ridiculous. You've got King Edward II of England with a massive army, maybe 20,000 men, and his trump card, the heavy cavalry, basically the medieval version of a tank column. And on the other side, Robert the Bruce, with maybe 6,000 guys. That's less than a third of the English force, and he was betting everything on his guys with the long spears. I mean, it doesn't get more David versus Goliath than this.
And that's the big question, isn't it? How on earth, facing a force more than 3 times its size, did this smaller Scottish army pull off a victory so total that people will be talking about it for centuries? Well, the answer, it's a mix of brilliant strategy, raw courage, and a king who knew his enemy's greatest strength could also be turned into their biggest weakness.
Okay, so you have to understand why this fight was even happening. This wasn't just two armies bumping into each other. No, this whole thing was forced. It was all about a single castle and a deadline, a ticking clock, that basically put the entire war on a knife's edge.
This conflict had been boiling for decades. After years of English control, Robert the Bruce had fought and clawed his way back, taking over most of Scotland. But there was one last crucial piece on the board, Stirling Castle. And in a really clever move, the English commander holding the castle made a deal. He promised to surrender it unless an English army came to save him by June 24, 1314. And just like that, a deadline was set. It forced Edward's hand and guaranteed this massive all-or-nothing showdown.
Robert the Bruce was no fool. He knew that if he fought a normal, head-on battle, it would be a suicide mission. He just couldn't outmuscle the English army, so he decided to outthink them. His genius was in realizing that the battle wouldn't be won by his soldiers alone. No, he was going to turn the very ground under the enemy's feet into his most powerful weapon.
Now, the heart and soul of the Scottish army, and their answer to those terrifying knights, was something called the Schiltron. I want you to picture a giant, angry hedgehog made of men and steel. It's this dense, tight formation of spearmen, a moving wall of sharp points. It was designed for one thing and one thing only, to stop that unstoppable charge of armored cavalry dead in its tracks. This formation was absolutely key.
Bruce's plan? It was so simple, it was brilliant. Step 1, choose the perfect spot. He picked this narrow, swampy, marshy ground right near a stream called the Bannockburn. Step 2, use that ground to neutralize the main threat. He knew those huge war horses would get bogged down in the soft, wet earth. And step 3, the final piece of the puzzle, force the fight. He was going to funnel that giant English army right into a bottleneck, a place where their incredible numbers wouldn't be an advantage. They'd be a liability.
So, the stage is set. The battle kicks off on June 23rd. But before the armies really even get into it, the single moment of unbelievable drama happens. An event that would send a jolt of electricity through one army and a deep sense of dread to the other.
Just try to imagine this. An English knight, Sir Henry de Bohun, is looking across the field, and he sees a guy riding slightly ahead of the Scottish lines. He sees the crown on his helmet. It's him. It's Robert the Bruce. And in that instant, de Bohun sees his shot at history, at eternal glory, kill the king and the war, right here, right now. And as one of the old chronicles puts it, he charged directly at Robert the Bruce, who was lightly armed and mounted on a smaller horse. Think about that mismatch. De Bohun is a fully armored knight on a massive warhorse, basically a human wrecking ball, with his lance leveled. Bruce, by comparison, looks completely exposed.
But see, Bruce wasn't just a king. He was a hardened warrior. He held his nerve as this metal beast came thundering down on him. At the very last second, he expertly swerves his smaller, nimbler horse to the side. De Bohun's lance just whistles past, and as the knight rumbles by, Bruce stands up in his stirrups and brings his battle axe down with everything he has. One shot. That's all it took. The axe supposedly split de Bohun's helmet and his skull clean in two. This incredible act of personal bravery, right in front of everyone, sent this massive jolt to morale through the Scottish army. Their king was a champion. And for the English who saw it, well, it was a very, very bad omen.
The next day, June 24th, deadline day, arrives. And this is it.
This is where all of Bruce's careful planning pays off, as the English army, probably still shaken from that duel, walks right into the trap he'd set.
Maybe Edward was feeling overconfident, but he ordered his army to push across the Bannockburn, and bam, the trap springs. The huge English army gets squeezed into that marshy ground. They can't form up properly. The cavalry is slipping and sliding. And into this growing chaos, the Scottish Chiltern start moving forward, not defending but attacking, pushing like this unstoppable tide of steel. You can just imagine the panic spreading through the English ranks. There's no room to fight, and even worse, no room to run.
So the English lines are already starting to crumble. But what happens next is what turns a bad defeat into a total disaster. As the fight is raging, a whole bunch of Scottish camp followers, cooks, servants, anyone who traveled with the army, they come up over a nearby hill, probably just trying to see what's going on. To the panicked, confused English soldiers, this crowd of people holding up makeshift flags and banners looks like a whole new Scottish army arriving to finish them off. And that was it. That was the final straw. The English army's discipline just completely shatters, and they turn and run in a blind, terrified panic. The battle was over.
The victory was just stunning, but its real impact wasn't just about what happened on that one day. The shockwaves from Bannockburn would be felt for years, and they would completely change the political map of Great Britain.
You can draw a straight line from this victory to Scotland becoming a nation again. In 1314, the battle makes Bruce's throne secure. That victory gives him the clout to issue the Declaration of Arbroath in 1320, which is basically Scotland telling the world, we are our own country. And then, finally, in 1328, you get the Treaty of Edinburgh-Northampton. That's the one that makes it official. England formally recognizes Scotland as a fully independent nation.
But the legacy of this battle goes so much deeper than any piece of paper. Bannockburn became this powerful symbol for Scotland. It was proof that a smaller nation, through pure grit and brilliant thinking, could defend its right to exist. It became a real cornerstone of their national identity.
So I guess I'll just leave you with this question to think about. The whole thing was kicked off by a deadline for a single castle, right? But what was actually won that day was something so much bigger. Bannockburn wasn't just a military win. You could say it was the moment a nation's spirit was forged in the fire of battle. A spirit of resilience that, you could argue, still defines Scotland to this day.